So, do you have to have a special, I'd say special, but is there people that are specifically made for this, or you just have to have an open mind to be able to learn the skills that you need?
It's so interesting because when I first went into it, I thought you have to be born with this. Like
Mhm.
it's something you have to be aware of from childhood. Like you hear the stories of little kids who have people come into their bedrooms or could always see it. I have a really good friend who since she was 3 could talk to
Wow.
people, and she's amazing. But so that's what I thought. But it turns out if you want to do it, it's a skill you can learn because everybody has this ability within them. A lot of people only, like anyone can communicate with their own loved ones. Like, let's say your grandmother died and you wanted to get a message from her. You could sit quietly and talk to her in your head, and she could send you a sign.
Imagine waking up one morning and by the end of the day, someone you love more than anything is gone. No warning, no time to prepare, just a before and after. What do you hold on to when the world changes in an instant? And how do you even begin to make sense of this life? Carla Kaufman Sloan, who we're so excited to have on the show today, is an Emmy winning writer and TV producer whose personal journey of grief and healing has led her to a life of service as a nonprofit founder and practicing medium. And we are so excited to have you today because we have so many questions.
Oh, yay. Well, thank you. That was such a beautiful intro, and I'm excited to meet you guys.
Thank you.
Hmm.
So, can we start with your story of like how you got on this path to, I mean, you were an Emmy and the Emmy part was earlier in life, right? The writing, the or was that all during this time?
No, no, that was early in life. So I um, was into television. I moved to Los Angeles from New York. I'm from New Orleans originally. I moved to New York, moved to Los Angeles, and I worked on a lot of TV shows. And I actually wrote for game shows, and I wrote a lot of comedy.
Mm.
So it's really even more interesting that now this is my life. But the truth is, a lot of funny and humorous things come out now that I'm doing this kind of work. But the Emmy was for a show called Winbenstein's Money, and that was a Comedy Central game show back in the day.
Yeah, I actually remember that. So,
Oh yeah.
yeah. Yeah. And then so tell us what happened. Tell us about your son because if we want to talk about grief, let's talk about the story first and then go into what you're doing now.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you so much for actually asking about it because so many people shy away from grief.
Mm.
They don't want to talk about it. And I mean, I can't say that if this hadn't happened to me, I would be the first one to talk about grief or want to talk about the like worst possible things in our lives. But now I just realize what a need there is for that. And I'm going to tell you the story of what happened. But I just finished a course with David Kessler on becoming a grief educator so we can learn how to be with people who are in this kind of grief because it's just something that no one's really educated about or want. I'm sure we don't want to deal with it, but you're going to have to deal with it at some point,
Yeah,
whether it's your dog or your grandfather or
I
right.
think a lot of people don't know what to say. So I'd love to talk about that after because even when we find out that someone is ill, a lot of people don't want to approach that because they're like, oh my gosh, what do we say? But what I've learned from people who have gone through a tragic loss or an illness, that they want you to ask because they want to know that you actually care and that you're instead of just skirting around the issue. But back to you.
Okay, sorry. So my husband and I actually met in Los Angeles and then we moved to Miami because he's obsessed with Miami and being on the water. And so we bought a house that was on a canal in Miami. And we have two amazing kids that were born 2 years and 2 months apart. And, we ran our own business like you guys. We were always on the go, going, going, going. the kids. I had a little bit of help, but I would like get home and want to do everything and be with them. And one weekend, my husband said, "We have not done anything as adults in so long. Our friend is having a birthday party. Let's go." It was like a daytime party. And I didn't want to go. I never wanted to do anything. Between the exhaustion of being a mom and
Mhm.
running a company, I was like, but also I just didn't want to. I was like, I don't know. I don't feel comfortable. But we did end up going to the birthday party, and that was where we got the phone call. I always say the phone call no parent wants to get,
Mm.
nobody ever wants to get. And it was from our longtime babysitter, and she couldn't speak on the phone. Like I just knew the minute I heard her like couldn't breathe, I knew that something tragic had happened. And we found out Calder had been electrocuted in our swimming pool, which is mind blowing.
Yes.
Yeah. Like no one even thinks about it. You know, there's a pool light at the end of every pool. His favorite thing to do is to jump in, swim the full length of the pool underwater without taking a breath, touch the light, and swim back. And he dove in to do that, and the entire pool was electrified. And so by the time he touched the light, it just threw him out of the pool.
Mm.
And um, they rushed him to the hospital. I actually outline all this in a book I just finished writing, but they rushed him to the hospital um, because, of course, they didn't want him to die, but there was nothing that could be done. There was just too much electricity. Our neighbor came over because he heard the screams from my babysitter, and he tried to give Calder mouth to mouth, but there was so much electricity running through his body, he couldn't even hold on to him.
Oh my
And
Wow.
he,
gosh.
yeah, it's
Wow.
awful.
And was your other son there?
He was there,
Mhm.
and so that's another whole um, complication, and something that afterwards I was always worried about parenting my son who is still alive
Mhm.
while trying to not completely fall apart, which I did. But I was like, I had enough awareness that I managed to be present during the day, like to get him to school. And then I would fall apart and then pick him up. He's a teenager now, so he likes to say, "Well, yeah, you thought you were doing a good job, but you were a mess." I'm like, "Okay, thanks."
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, how could you not be, right?
Right. I know. I
So,
truly, at
yeah.
one point, didn't think I was gonna survive it.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, as a parent, I don't, and that's kind of what I want to get to next. Like, what did you do, and what would you recommend to parents who are going through something like this? Because I know for me, I don't know what I would do. I mean, obviously, I don't even want to think about it, right? But
Right.
you know,
I know.
so,
Nobody wants to think about it.
yeah,
It's like the worst possible thing, and the amount of pain that you feel when you lose a child is the thing that can like hold you back from it's just so painful. And that's why people don't know what to do or say, because you are like the walking dead. And so people will see you and then they'll freeze, or they'll make a face, or they'll, because you're just trying to, okay, what am I going to do? I'm trying to like navigate myself through this, but they're like looking at their worst nightmare by seeing you, thinking about what it is, and trying not to say it. They're really trying not to say anything wrong, but it's so hard without some kind of guidance.
right,
And what I found was that really the people who I could relate to, and the only people I could truly relate to like 2 years after the fact, were parents who had lost children,
Mhm.
mm,
because it was too hard for everyone else. And that's why I decided to become, I now even run a grief group with another mom whose son died of an inoperable brain tumor. But this is like, we met a year ago. So it's been 11 years since Calder died. And I would say this is the product of a lot of therapy, work, but mostly reading. Like, I became obsessed with this world of spirituality because the only thing that touched me after um, while I was going through that really dark, murky first 2 years was a reading with a medium. And I had never thought about that. I mean, I worked in LA, so there are mediums all over
Mhm.
the place. John Edward was on TV, Teresa Caputo now, there's the Hollywood medium. But I don't know, it just never occurred to me to want to get involved with that kind of world because I didn't need it.
Did you so for me, like, I wonder, would I even think about that as well? What do I like? I'm sitting here thinking, do I believe in this, or does it take some kind of thing to happen that you're like, well, maybe? And is that like, did you used to think about, or did you ever think about, like, yeah, mediums do this work? And
I don't think I ever thought about it because I didn't need it. But and even after Calder died, I was too busy like trying to live through
Mhm.
and decide if I wanted to live through. And um, it was all by a series of what I now refer to as synchronicities that I didn't even get the reading. My husband, who is so far away from ever believing in any of this kind of stuff, was at the office. He had gone back to work, and our development executive at the time said, "I happen to know a medium. Would you want a reading?" And my husband said, What is that?" And so he got the reading with this amazing medium, AJ Barrera, and it was recorded. So he just recorded the audio for his clients. So 2 days later, or a couple of days later, my husband came home and he said, "I have something to tell you." And I was like, "What?" I mean, what? It sounded
Yeah.
so like he was like confessing something. I was like, "Okay, what?" And he confessed that he had had this reading, and he played it for me, and it was mind blowing. Like, every detail, things that no one would know in
Mhm.
any way, like something that was put in our son's coffin that we didn't even know. We were trying to track down and had just found out that morning that it was in the coffin with him when he was buried. And it came through in that reading. So
wow.
we were like, what? So we call that like opening. Like, it was a
Mhm.
little opening of, this has to be true.
And then after that, did you do more readings? And again, I don't know how it works. So, did you do more readings with other people, or then you decided that you wanted to get trained yourself?
So after that, I was kind of like, I would say I was struggling, like you are right now.
Mhm.
Like, you're like, I don't know if I believe this, but it was so amazing to hear it. And then at the end of the reading, that particular medium, my husband goes, "Oh, I think my wife would benefit from this. Would you do a reading for her?" And he was like, "Well, why don't you share the recording with her?" Because as a medium, you never want to do a reading for someone who's like completely closed off.
Mm.
Like, I don't like, prove it to me, because it just becomes kind of a mess.
Mhm.
But so when I listened to the recording and I heard that, I was like, "Oh, I'm going to track him down." I like went into producer mode and I tracked him down. I went to an event that he was having with another medium to train mediums, but I was just going undercover under a fake name.
Oh, wow.
Like a complete lunatic, because I was like, okay, I'm going to see what's really going on here. And I went, and lo and behold, all these mediums were just regular people who were open to wanting to do this. And so we meditated. He had no idea who I was. I didn't know who I was at that time. I was under a fake name. People were talking to me as if they called me Melanie from Miami.
Wow.
So they were like, Melanie. And I'd be looking like, who's Melanie? And they'd be like, touch me on the shoulder. Like I was the worst undercover person ever. And then after that, I felt like there was something bigger. And Calder made sure I knew he was there. And it took all weekend, but like there would be classes and meditations, and then AJ and another medium would get up and read for the whole 30 people or whoever were there. And he was doing that like 3 or 4 times during the weekend, but Calder didn't come through. And I was sitting there freaking out internally. And then, because there was like, grandfathers coming through who were in the military, bit like older people, and I thought, oh my gosh, let him through. He's just this little boy. He probably is like not doesn't know how to get through all these big people. And right as I was thinking that, the event was coming to an end, and AJ said, okay, so we're gonna wrap up. And people started to like kind of get up out of their chairs, and he goes, oh wait 1 second, there's one more person here. Oh, I can tell it's a little boy because he's pulling on my pants leg, and he's showing me that he's younger, and he gave me this beautiful reading, and I completely fell apart. Like you would have thought it had just happened that day. And everyone there was so, even though I was like this train wreck, they're like, why is she crying? We talk to dead people all the time.
Yeah.
They were so kind to me, and it turned into this amazing event.
So, do you have to have a special, I'd say special, but is there people that are specifically made for this, or you just have to have an open mind to be able to learn the skills that you need?
It's so interesting because when I first went into it, I thought you have to be born with this. Like
Mhm.
it's something you have to be aware of from childhood. Like you hear the stories of little kids who have people come into their bedrooms, or could always see it. I have a really good friend, Rosie Sapiro, who since she was 3 could talk to
Wow.
people, and she's amazing. But so that's what I thought. But it turns out if you want to do it, it's a skill you can learn because everybody has this ability within them. A lot of people only, like, anyone can communicate with their own loved ones. Like, let's say your grandmother died and you wanted to get a message from her. You could sit quietly and talk to her in your head, and she could send you a sign. Have you guys heard of that book, Signs?
Yes, I
I
have
have
not read it,
not.
but I've heard of it.
No.
Okay, so this woman, Laurelyn Jackson, wrote a book all about signs. And there's a story about our family in there. And for the longest time, I was getting signs from Calder, but I didn't know it.
Mhm.
Like, I didn't recognize that's what he was doing. He would send me, like, a baby dragonfly that would get stuck in the car with me. And I would be aware that there was something going on, but I just didn't fully understand it until I started reading about all of this. And I will tell you the funniest story to explain it. So I was talking to a friend from high school last week, and she reminded me of this time we took my car out in high school, and I am the worst driver. And we were driving along, and it was the 80s, so it was before cars were fancy with like all this technology and
Mhm.
everything. And I hit a pothole in New Orleans really hard, and the car all of a sudden went through an entire vocal, like, maintenance handbook. It was like, your door is ajar, your trunk is open, and it was talking, and we had never experienced a talking car before, and we were laughing so hard. But after I talked to her about that, I thought, oh, that's what it is. There's like a chip inside of you, and until you access it, it's just sitting there dormant
Mm.
unless you hit a giant pothole, which, needless to say, I did.
Do you practice now?
I do practice now. In fact, I had someone come over yesterday for a reading, and for the first time, my son was like, "Oh, you really are doing this?" I was like, "Yeah, I
And
do. I practice."
do you find it difficult? Like, do you find, I mean, does it scare you at all? Does it intimidate you at all? Or do you find a sense of peace with it?
I have to say, every time it happens, I still am so amazed and grateful that
Mm-hmm.
it's a connection and that the person is getting something out of it. When I started this path that I wanted to do this, I didn't know if I could actually do it. I didn't think I would ever be like, oh, I'm a practicing medium. I thought, oh, if I meet parents who are in need, I'll be able to at least help them. But every time it happens, I'm just so grateful. And it's especially, I feel like, oh, I know what I was going to say. So I am a little intimidated because I've had readings from some of the greatest mediums out there. And so I always am trying to get up to that level, like anything in life. You're
Mm-hmm.
like,
Right.
I want to be that good. But I will tell you, it never stops being a magical moment when someone's loved one comes in and just lets you know exactly what will make them recognize them, will feel so you can feel their presence, and will tell you something specifically noteworthy for them.
So, on the grieving process, would you say that this is something that people should definitely invest their time into? Maybe not becoming a medium, but like looking into getting a reading?
I would say, yeah, if you're not um, able to move through your grief, I mean, there's a lot of things you can do in terms of therapy and classes, but to me, this is the number one healing modality you can find. But you have to really be careful about who you
Mm-hmm.
reach out to. Like, and there's a group called Helping Parents Heal that has listed mediums that are well known. I don't know if they're certified, but they're verified. They've gone through a process with that group, so they know they're all excellent and they're not doing anything to scam people. The Forever Family Foundation, the Monroe Institute, these are all people who study this and only recommend the best people.
On the grieving journey, we hear a lot about like the 12-step process. Do you think that's a real thing?
Oh, really? The 12 step?
Maybe I feel like I
I
hear
think it's
12 steps.
nine.
I have no, I mean, the step process.
Yeah.
The
It's
whole 12 step
funny that you're,
process.
yes, I do. Yeah, I've heard about that. It's funny you bring that up because the woman who created that is Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and she was a scientist, and she actually created it for people who were dying. So
Mm.
she would sit in hospice with people who were dying, and she noticed those 5 steps of shock, denial. I forget what they are because I don't talk about them that much. But the last one is acceptance. And when I read that, it was early in the grief, and I got so angry. I had
Mhm.
like a fantasy fight with her. I was like, "How can you say no one can ever accept that their child died suddenly in an accident?" I just found the word, it didn't sit well with me because you never really accept it. You kind of just fold it into your life.
Mhm.
But maybe that's semantics. But I do feel like there are stages, they just don't happen in order. And grief is a very personal process, right? Everybody's going to handle it differently. And I would say the most helpful thing for people who don't know what to say or don't know how to deal with someone who's really in that painful grief is if you can just sit and listen to the person who's grieving. That's the most helpful thing you can do. And ask them about their loved one. Like, people are afraid to, not anymore because I'm so vocal about
Mhm.
Calder, and we created a foundation and we're just like Calder, Calder, Calder. We'll always talk about him. But in the beginning, people were scared to say, like, they're scared they're going to remind you that the person died.
Like
But
you would ever forget.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
But it's the ideas that we have in our head of like what's the right thing to do. And we had a guest on several months ago, and her son had committed suicide. He was in his 20s, I
Mhm.
think. And
Mm-hmm.
she said that was the hardest part for her, that nobody would ask. Nobody would ask about him. And she said the same thing about dealing with grief. Like, I had to deal with it. A lot of the stuff that I did was through laughter, because it was the only way I could get through my day. And she's like, and people would judge me because I was laughing about things. And you're not supposed to laugh when someone you love passes away. But that was her way of coping. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts, because I do agree that grief is how you deal with things, and it's so personal, like so many things that we do.
Yes. Well, yes, I'm sure that mom, I feel the same way. Like, my whole life was about laughter before this happened. I was always loving comedy, and I just feel like it's so important to be able to find that again. Now, having small children helped, like having Caleb, because he became a total goofball. Like, we would do anything to make each other laugh in the early days. In fact, before Calder died, we would play a game in the car when I was driving them back and forth to school called I Bet You Can't Make Me Laugh. And we would just all laugh. And that was like the best part. You know, that part
Mhm.
when I'm sure you guys still do things like that together, but when they're little and they're so like fun and funny. But it is, you can't judge someone. If she could laugh, I just would feel like yay for her. It's so, and I feel like suicide even adds another layer to it,
Hmm.
because there's all this guilt, and there's just so many things that people do judge because they don't know, and
Mhm.
they always look to the parents, and the parents had to struggle with whatever the mental illness was of this kid or this 20-year-old. And that was another great thing we talked about in the grief educator class, because so many people do have to deal with that. And it's another thing no one wants to talk about: suicide. One of my friends, years after Calder died, her son, or their son, they're married, committed suicide. And it was really hard because they didn't, it was exactly what you're saying. People didn't know what to say, they
Hmm.
didn't know what to do. But I will tell you, those are some of the most resilient parents I know. Like, they started a foundation at a school or a fund to make sure that kids could go there who couldn't afford it. And that's how they were dealing with it. And it was really helpful to keep his name out there in the world, Avery.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you so and I read this, whether this is true or not, but did you used to believe that we stopped existing when we die? Was that your thought before?
I'm I will say that, so I was raised Jewish, so I was raised with religion, and I used to go to temple a lot, and I would hear what the rabbis were saying. And for whatever reason, in our religion, I'm lucky because they talk about the soul and that the soul does go on. And while I never thought about it, it was just like background noise in
Mhm.
my life. I really never thought about it, but when I had to go through this, I was like, oh, so I always kind of had this. thought that it didn't just go black, that there was something else that was
Mhm.
going to happen. I wasn't sure what it was, and I never thought about it deeply.
Right.
Like,
I think like most things, we don't think about those things until they're right in front of us. And then we have to start thinking about it. I mean, even for me, when my dad died, I think that was probably one of the hardest things I went through. Um, he had cancer, and
sorry.
thank you. And he was the first man I ever loved. So that idea of, and I was kind of, it was too hard for my mom to deal with the decision making. So I had to be the main decision maker of end of life care and that kind of stuff. And it's hard. There's a lot of guilt, even when you know that someone is dying, right? There's a lot of things that you have to process, and it takes a really long time. And sometimes you do look and say, "Oh, it's so hard to forgive myself." And that's what I hope that parents who are listening will, take that step of saying that, you know, we have to be able to move forward with stuff. I mean, that's the thing, like, to make a difference in someone else's life now moving forward. And I think that's what you're doing with your foundation.
Thank you. Yes. Well, I am so sorry about your dad. And I do know being the decision maker does cause this conflict within us, because we're like, did I do it right? And you're just second guessing yourself. And I will say that in the readings I've done and in the classes and circles I've experienced, that I've never heard of some loved one coming through and saying, "Oh, you should have kept me alive for 2 more weeks," or "You should have left me on the ventilator." Like, they're always just filled with love and thankful for the person who was in that position. So I hope that is helpful.
Yeah. And I agree. I mean, he said to me, before it was weeks before, he goes, "I just wish there were a door that I could walk through and just be done. Like, I am suffering and nobody's letting me just be done." And that's hard too, right? It's like both ways. It's like, oh, you want him to stay alive, and then but you don't want him to suffer, and you have to make a decision. And I think it's a lot. So I'm interested well, I want to talk about your foundation first, but also talk about in terms of grief counseling, how you deal with that, because I didn't get grief counseling afterwards, and I probably should have, because it's something I realized that's when my sleep issues started, and a lot of things started after that. So
I'm sure.
yeah.
Yes. Well, we'll talk about my foundation, but I will say that it's almost I wish they would it's so hard because we're so hard on ourselves, and it's just something that it's interesting you bring it up, because I just wrote a Substack that launched today about my friend Shanna, who also died of cancer. And I look at it as I was honored enough to be one of the inner circle
Mm.
who got to be there almost to the end. Like, we had one other friend. It was like the three of us had grown up together in TV. And um, yeah, there was all that questioning, and my other girlfriend was the one who was in charge of the paperwork, and this woman's sister was in charge. So there was all these conversations, and it's hard to watch someone you love fade away like that. So I would say to you, get a reading with a medium.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure he would come through with so much love and appreciation. But also pick up one of David Kessler's book if you want to go just more with the, scientific Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, but more than that, understanding.
Mhm.
It's just helpful. Yeah, so we started a foundation. I'll say my husband spearheaded it because it was really early after Calder died, like 2 years after. And we just wanted to give back and keep his name. So it's called Caleb and Calder Sloan's Awesome Foundation, because we wanted to include his younger brother Caleb in the foundation and not feel like, oh, create some kind of sibling rivalry with his dead brother or some like
Mm-hmm.
favoritism. And it's we mostly wanted to do it for children in grief, and so we but we did also realize that there is a different kind of grief when you are in financial straits. So we would do a lot of back to school events with kids and making sure kids had what they needed for school. And most recently, we've created the Unleash Your Awesome Award, which is for a teenager in our community that is like just a kind, thoughtful person who volunteers, who does the right thing, and they're nominated by someone else in the community. And then they're given this award to, let everyone know that they're standing up for what's right and doing things for kids. And we also created a legacy fund at this amazing camp called Experience Camps, which is specifically for children who've lost a sibling or a parent or someone so that they can, and it's completely funded. So for 1 week, these kids are allowed to go to this camp, talk to other kids, because that was the other thing. My son was kind of like no one else had experienced this.
Mm-hmm.
His elementary school, so that's like a lot of kids who had not experienced it. So he had no one to compare notes with, and he was really little. But as the years went on, it became a thing where we realized he needed to talk to, just like I needed to talk to parents who had lost kids, he needed to talk to kids who had lost family members.
Did he, I mean, obviously he was little, so, but did he experience the same thing as a child, maybe even as he got older, that people don't want to ask him about his brother? Or kids usually are pretty straightforward about stuff, but I'm just curious if he said at any time that nobody will even ask me about him.
Actually, it was so different for him. Like you said, kids are so straightforward. Even when I would be at school with him for an event, the little first graders would come up to me and be like, so Calder was electrocuted and then he died. Like they're so
Yeah.
like that way.
Say
They
it how
couldn't
it is. Yeah.
or they thought it was just so unbelievable. They would start laughing uncontrollably, which was not fun for me.
Yeah, of
But
course.
I was like, okay, yeah, because it doesn't seem like something real to them.
Yeah. In terms of, obviously the show is called Her Unshakable Confidence. I mean,
Yes.
to be able to get back up and to keep going, I mean, it does take a lot of confidence. It
Yes.
takes a lot of resilience. I mean, what does confidence mean to you?
Well, you know what's so funny? I always think of that Chumbawamba song. Like I get knocked down, but I
I'll
get
get
up
up
again.
again. You're never going to keep me down. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like to me, it is not being so hard on myself and knowing that every day I'm adding something to the legacy of this work. Like every day I'm like, get up, do it. I actually don't have days, maybe once in a while, but I've gotten to a place where I'm just like gung ho and I just want to get the word out and help
Mm.
people. So I feel like that is what it is. You just have to get up again.
Yeah. It's really that putting one foot in front of the other, even when you don't feel like it, right? I mean, I
Yes.
think that's such a big part of it. And I think that most people can relate with the idea of not wanting to put the foot in front of the other, wanting to just say, you know what, I'm just going to stay buried in bed all day. Like that might be easier for me, but I, watch what you're doing, and I think it's so impressive, and it really it inspires other people, and I think that's the most important thing, that when we have something that happens in our life, that if we can help one other person deal with something that they're going through, then we've made a difference.
Mm-hmm.
I completely agree. I think that's so nice. Thank you for saying that about me. I was reading the title of your book and I thought, oh, this is a perfect synchronicity that we're, because your book is all about, wait, I have to use my cheat sheet, about following your own path.
Yeah.
And um, because you're extraordinary. And I thought, oh, I wish I'd found that book years ago. That's an amazing message. But it's true. Like, everyone's on their own path. And I mean, people are so impressed and in awe of you guys for doing this show and having
We just
amazing.
have fun.
This is fun.
Yeah, we have fun, and you know what? We learn so much. I mean, I think at first we started off saying we just want to have our conversations, and as soon as we started having guests come on, each time, like, we have a conversation afterwards, and I was like, we should record those conversations, but we have a conversation afterwards about what we learned and how we're going to think about something differently because of the person we talk to. And I know definitely after today's conversation we'll have that conversation.
Yeah.
But so I think for us it's just it's learning, and it really has helped us change in really good ways. Yeah.
That's amazing. I will say the thing about opening up to this belief system that there's something bigger is such a path to fun, because you can get like signs and messages every day.
Mm.
And it happens all the time. And it's just such a way to open up your life. And I'm just grateful that I know now when it happens. In the beginning, I had no idea, but now I do know when it's happening. And it just is, to use the word magic, it really is. It's really a fun ride.
I think we should read the book Signs and talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think people can show up in your dreams, like your past loved ones?
Oh my gosh, yes, I so believe that. I don't know, have you had that experience?
I have. My grandfather came to me in a dream probably a year after his passing. And it was just so real. Like, it felt so real, like he was gardening, and that's what he always did growing up. And I can exactly picture the spot in their house, or right outside of their garage with their beautiful honeysuckle bushes. And so to me, like, I woke up afterwards and I texted the only friend at the time that had had a grandparent pass. And I was like, do you get these dreams? That was like the realest thing I have ever experienced in a dream. It was like he was right there.
Yes, and that's called a visitation. Like, he really was coming to say hi to you and letting you know he was okay and he's still with you. That's beautiful. I love that. Did he come to you too? This is your father, yes?
It's my father.
Yeah.
No, I think that would really help if he did. Maybe he will now. Maybe that would help my sleep issues, right?
Yes, I
So,
think it would. I will tell you one more story. So my friend Shan I was talking about, I was just in New York with our friend Santina, the other musketeer, and we had a drink and we raised a glass to Shanna. We were having these like orange mimosa-y things, and we said like hi to Shanna. And that night I had a dream that she was just walking through my dream, and she had three glasses of empty glasses with orange juice stains in them, and she was smiling, and she's like, I was there.
oh,
And I love it when
so
that
cool.
happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll have to pay attention more
Yeah,
now.
you do.
I think because I have such bad sleep that a lot of times I don't remember what I dreamed. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, again, one of the things I'm going to take away from today's conversation is really focusing on that.
Great.
What's the best advice a woman in your life has ever given you?
The best advice a woman in my life has ever given me was that I could do this. Like, all I had to do was look inside of myself to find what I was looking for. And at the time I was like, what? You just don't want to, it was another medium. And I was like, you just don't want to give me another reading. What are you talking But it's really, looking within.
Yeah. I think that is part of like everything I talk about is how important, on the inside, like what we want for ourselves, how we take care of ourselves, how we respect ourselves, all of those things. And it's built from the inside out.
True. It's so true.
So Liv, read from your calendar for today.
I think it's pretty fitting.
Let's see. Sometimes it kind of matches. So this is the un-F yourself calendar. I'll keep the word out of there. But and a lot of times it kind of aligns with what we're talking about. Occasionally it doesn't, but let's see.
Wouldn't you rather have a real and powerful say in how this life goes instead of drifting on autopilot?
That's beautiful.
Yeah, that's a good one. It does. That does match with it. I mean, it's that idea we have to keep going. And, again, I applaud everything that you're doing, your foundation, and you have a book coming out, or
I just actually signed with a literary agent. I'm so excited about the book because it's called Everywhere. Because when our loved ones cross over, the thing I realized was they're just everywhere all the time, and they can visit everyone and just let everyone know that they're okay. And yeah, I'm excited for it to come out. I have so many, like the crazy undercover medium story. Like I have other stories like that, like when I was out of my mind. And then as the book goes on and I realize I can be a medium, there are these amazing stories of people I meet and other parents who I'm able to give readings to that I'm still like, did that happen? That was so cool.
Do you have a release date yet?
No, I don't have the release date yet, but I'll let you guys know as soon as I do.
Yeah,
yes,
absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. And where can people find you if they want a medium or if they need grief counseling, or I think you have so much to offer.
Thank you. I have a website called carlasloan.net. I'm on Instagram at Carla Sloan. I'm on Facebook. I have a Substack, which is all stories, magical stories of healing and hope. Also, all under Carla Kaufman Sloan. Except for my Instagram, someone had taken that already somehow, so it's Carla Sloan. Which made my husband happy.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Like, this was such a great conversation, and I think how open and honest you are about things, I think really will help a lot of people. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. And thanks for doing this. I've listened to now 10 or 15 episodes, and I'm going to listen to all of them. They're amazing.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you.
And thanks for joining us on this week's episode of Her Unshakable Confidence. Always remember, you are unshakable.
Bye, guys.
Thank you for listening to Her Unshakable Confidence with Simone and Olivia Knego. We hope this episode has made your day just a little bit brighter and given you the inspiration you need to confidently go about your week. Always remember to be authentically you. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And feel free to connect with them on Instagram at Simone Knego and at Olivia Knego. Till next time.